Wilk, Wilk I Wyland, Wyland I Yi, Yi I. 9-0.
9-0, that bill is out, Ms. Conway.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Marty, Mr. Block, you're just sliding into third here. Go ahead. You're up next. AB 2369. You're waiving presentation on 2 items. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All righty. So we'll start with AB 2369 on elections ballots.
Okay. AB 2369.
No, you're all right.
Okay, 2369 would lift the sunset and permanently extend the provision allowing overseas voters to return completed ballots by facsimile. The faxing in of ballots by absentee voters living abroad has allowed members of our armed forces deployed overseas to actively participate in the democracy they work so hard to protect.
Mr. Ashburn moved the bill. I think it was out of sympathy for your shortness of breath. All right, we have a motion. Any witnesses today, Mr. Block?
Not in this bill.
Any opposition or favorable? Finance, do you have a comment?
The Secretary of State indicates that the bill would have no fiscal impact on its office, and we note that there are no current mandate costs associated with the existing statutory provisions of this bill, and we do not anticipate any mandate costs as a result of extending it.
Very good. Any further comments, members? We have a motion. We'll call the roll.
Kehoe.
Aye.
Kehoe I. Alquist.
Aye.
Alquist I. Ashburn. Aye. Ashburn I. Corbett. Aye. Corbett I. Emerson. Aye. Emerson I. Leno. Price. Aye. Price I. Walters Wilk. Aye. Wilk I. Wyland. Aye. Wyland I. Yi. Aye. Yi I. 9-0.
9-0. That bill is out. And waiving presentation on the next 2 items, so you'll take up AB 2698 on foster youth and identity theft.
That's correct. And I appreciate your indulgence. I've been watching you on TV for the last hour or two, and I heard my name, and I ran up the stairs. And, I've caught my breath now, so thank you. AB 2698 deals with foster youth identity theft. Foster youth are particularly subject to identity theft because they change residences so often and change schools so often, so their identity is very spread out. AB 2698 seeks to reduce the impact of this identity theft by having the state or the county check on a foster youth's credit by getting a credit report from a credit reporting agency when that youth...
Senator Corbett moves the bill. Is that all right? All righty?
Let me just add that your analysis, we've amended the bill, and your analysis states that there are no significant costs with the amendments at this time.
Very good. Any further comments, members? Have a motion by Senator Corbett. Finance, yes. Do you have a comment?
Madam Chair, I have an analysis on the April 19th version of the bill. I'm not sure if this is the most... Is that the most current?
No,
we had
there are amendments
costs.
today.
Okay.
There are amendments today.
I don't have an analysis on that measure.
All righty.
My apologies.
All righty. So we have, so is it, these are amendments are not in the bill yet, but they will be?
No, 2 amendments are in the bill.
So is it as amended?
Yes. Yeah, the amendments
Is it as amended then, the motion?
yes.
Already?
So straight do pass.
Yeah, it was a preprint.
All right, so it's a do pass, Ms. Corbett, just so you know, you have your record straight. No further comments. We'll call the roll.
Kehoe.
Aye.
Kehoe I. Alquist. Aye. Alquist I. Ashburn. Aye. Ashburn I. Corbett. Aye. Corbett I. Emerson. Aye. Emerson I. Leno. Price. Aye. Price I. Walters Wilk. Aye. Wilk I. Wyland. Aye. Wyland I. Yi. Aye. Yi I. 9-0.
9-0. That bill is out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Block. Ms. Buchanan, you have 2 items. They're both suspense candidates. Right. You're going to present them both?
Yes.
All righty. Come right ahead. First is AB 2390, Public Works Projects and Bidding.
Okay, I'll try and make this as quick as I can. 2390 moves up the time when contractors and subcontractors for public works projects must provide their current contractor license number and proof of workers' compensation insurance. By requiring contractors to provide the information at the time the bid is placed and within 5 days of the award of bid for their listed subcontractors. This bill will also require that all additional subcontractors provide their information to the awarding agencies. As you know, current law requires all contractors to be licensed to carry workers' compensation insurance, yet many ignore this, thus promoting the underground economy. We believe this bill will help prevent these bad actors from receiving awards, saving public agencies time and money, and will reward legitimate contractors who play by the rules and do quality work. And I'd like to take just 1 minute to address the two staff comments. One was that, and we have appointments set up with Caltrans and DGS, but we haven't had those meetings yet. But the assumption that bid protests will increase, I don't understand that, because the bidding process is exactly the same as before, and the Associated General Contractors, we've worked out language, they agree with that, and the contractors have 5 days after the bid is awarded to show that subcontractors have it. With respect to Caltrans, you know, if you read their website, they say our mission in labor compliance is to create a fair and level playing field among all contractors bidding on Caltrans projects by ensuring consistency throughout the state and enforcement of federal and state labor laws, and to ensure that employees working on Caltrans projects are paid contracts specify prevailing wages, and they are allowed to work in an equal employment environment. It goes on to say that we know that Caltrans, this is already oversees job sites, has labor compliance division to ensure a fair and level playing field. When I was on school board, you either have your own compliance person or you contract out. So I do not see where additional staff is needed and how and why it creates a problem. Thank you.
Patrick May on behalf of the California State Council of Laborers. We are proud to be sponsors of this legislation, and we took a long time, worked with our contractor partners throughout the process, AAGC as well as the National Electrical Association. We're able to gain their support for this important piece of legislation that simply does provide information on the people that are going to be on your job sites. Concerns about liability, when I believe that there is liability is already assumed when people walk onto your job site. To us, this is a safety issue, just so that the public knows better about the contractors and workers that are on public works job sites. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Dave Ackerman, representing the Associated General Contractors. We've worked with the author to work out language we think which makes the bill workable. I agree with the author's comments that delaying the submission of the information for an additional 5 days, I think, eliminates what would normally could be bid protest incidents. So we've intentionally done that to minimize costs and avoid any costs from bid protests, and we ask your support.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council in support.
Additional testimony in favor? Any opposition? Finance, do you have a comment?
The Department of Finance estimates that this bill would result in minor and absorbable costs to the state because the additional requirement is primarily the responsibility of the contractors, and existing law already does require contractors bidding on public work projects to possess a license at the time the contract is awarded.
All righty. Yes.
Just a quick question. Clearly, anyone who does this should be licensed, and clearly they need to have valid workers' compensation insurance. So there's something I'm missing. One of the points in our opposition, and I just wondered if you'd address it, is a smaller contractor who may not have the number of employees that he or she would need to perform the contract, but nevertheless bids and then brings on the employees and subsequently has the workers' compensation insurance. Why not just wait until that time?
Well, one is if someone's a sole contractor, there is a provision that obviously, as you know, in the law where they don't have to have a workers' comp policy. What I would say is this, having been on school board, you know, and we did over $1 billion worth of projects in the 18 years I was on the board. And that is that we have to take the low bid. And particularly in today's environment where you see people who have not done public work, but because the private sector is hurting so badly are bidding on public jobs, you have people bidding on jobs out of their area of expertise. And at a minimum, if they cannot show proof of license and workers' comp at the time they're bidding, I question how valid their bids are and whether or not you know, they're the kind of reliable contractor that we want doing our public works jobs, and what problems are going to be created after that in terms of change orders and other problems.
Well, aren't there provisions for qualified bidders? Didn't you use that? Because sometimes, you have bidders who clearly are unqualified.
Well, if a public agency has a provision to do pre-qualification, that you can pre-screen your bidders, but that doesn't always happen. Many public agencies just put contracts out to bid, and then they're subject to taking the low bid. And so all we're saying is we believe that if at a minimum you're showing proof of workers' comp and a valid license, then that just gives you doesn't guarantee you're going to get the best contractor at the best price. But,
the members are reminding me this bill is headed to suspense. So
right.
We heard
Feel
from
free to call my office.
Yeah, we heard from Finance already.
Right.
Any other comments, members? Then, without objection, it goes to suspense. AB 2592. Early warning, quality improvement, early learning.
Okay.
Excuse me. Also suspense, Ms.
Right, and let me just say, and I'll try and make this brief because I know the hour's late. But as you know, AB 2592 creates California's first early learning quality improvement scale pilot program. The bill specifically states that the pilot will be funded through federal grant funds. The program does not require any allocation from the state's general fund. The ELAC committee just submitted a grant proposal to the federal government last Friday for $7.6 million in funding. So, since the project does not require any state general funds, I'm a little bit perplexed.
Yeah, just Ms. Buchanan, we don't. Our intention isn't to frustrate the authors.
Right. Okay.
But the committee looks at all aspects of a fiscal
right.
question.
Okay.
If you can pass a federal bill and guarantee the federal funds, you strengthen your bill. Whether federal funds are going to come to the state for this program that you're describing, whether bond funds will be available, whether other kinds of grants or private funding. These are the
right.
types of suggestions authors frequently make in the bill. Those things are variable. And the position of the committee is if there is not a guaranteed source of funds, then pressure can revert to the general fund. If your federal funds dry up and the program is ongoing, then the pressure is on our state general fund to continue the program. So that's why we bring those issues up in the analysis.
Right. Okay, I apologize.
That's all right. I just, it comes up all the time. And
right.
Bond funds, special funds, private donations. You and I and the legislature have no control over those. And so the committee does not look at them as permanent, sustainable funding.
Okay.
All right. So you want to go to your witnesses?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kevin McCarty, Preschool California. We're the sponsor, and of course we support this bill. It's an important early learning and preschool bill, and the important thing here is focusing on improving quality, which shows that improved quality focuses on improved results for those early learners. And as the analysis stated, and as we just heard, this is all done with federal funds, and we ask for your support. Thank you.
Next, please.
Martha Flammer, representing the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. And Los Angeles County has implemented a Steps to Excellence project as of July 2007, representative of the similar issues here in this bill, and with demonstrated results. Therefore, we support this bill and ask for consideration when the suspense file comes up. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. This is a candidate for suspense, and without objection, then we'll move it there.
Okay.
But Ms. Buchanan, we're happy to meet with you.
Great, because I would just like to point out that it says this article shall not be implemented unless federal early learning care and education funds are provided for these purposes. So while there could be future pressure, I did want to point that out.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Finance, I didn't call on you. Go ahead, tell me.
Just to echo the concerns of the chair, the Department of Finance does note that it would result in cost pressures to the general fund in the millions of dollars to implement a quality rating improvement scale or a pilot basis, depending on the size and scope of the pilot, to the extent that the federal funds are not materialized.
Thank you, Finance. And I'm so glad to have you echo. All righty. Mr. Fletcher, thank you for your patience. We'll take up AB 2510, post-retirement health coverage. This is a due pass, members.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senators. Current law allows a local agency to provide health care to its active employees and retired annuitants through the state's PERS system known as PEMCA if the local agency meets certain conditions. This bill will allow the San Diego Police Officers Association and its members, which have agreed through collective bargaining to join the state's PEMCA system. It's beneficial in three ways I'll address very quickly. First, the state pool is much larger than the city pool. The larger pool spreads the risk and lowers the cost of health insurance for both the city and its employees. Second, PEMCA provides employees a much larger coverage area than does the San Diego system. Under the current model, which is geographically limited, retirees must procure more expensive coverage if they relocate outside the city after they retire. And third, the city would save a significant amount of money in administrative costs by joining PEMCA. Currently, the city of San Diego pays an average of 3 to 5% in administrative costs on the premiums. Contrast that with the PEMCA system, where the administrative costs are about 1/2 of 1%.
We have a motion from Senator Ashburn, but go ahead and complete your statement.
I'm just finishing. The city of San Diego and the San Diego Police Officers Association recently agreed through collective bargaining to participate in the PEMCA if we can make these changes legislatively. Both are strong supporters of the bill. This will help save the city millions of dollars and will improve the quality of care for the retirees.
Thank you.
Respectfully request an aye vote.
Ms. Topp.
Moira Topp on behalf of the City of San Diego. We are the sponsors of the measure and in very strong support.
All righty. Additional testimony in favor? Is there any opposition? Finance, do you have a comment?
The bill would have no impact to the state.
We have a motion from Senator Ashburn. No further comments. We'll call the roll.
Kehoe.
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Alquist. Aye. Alquist, aye. Ashburn. Aye. Ashburn, aye. Corbett. Aye. Corbett, aye. Emerson. Aye. Emerson, aye. Leno. Price. Aye. Price, aye. Walters. Wilk. Wilk, aye. Wyland. Wyland, aye. Yee. Yee, aye. 9-0.
9-0. The bill is out.
Thank you, Senator.
All righty. Next, Mr. Chesbro, come on up. You're presenting on all three items?
No, I'm going to waive presentation on AB 2702.
All righty.
And I believe the first item is 2575. Is that correct? First item is AB 2575.
Right ahead, Mr.
Okay,
Chesbro.
thank you, Madam Chair and members. AB 2575 provides guidance to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection and the Board of Forestry during its implementation of pilot projects to assess cumulative impact of timber harvest operations on a given watershed. The bill codifies and expands on a Board of Forestry rule requiring implementation of 2 pilot projects to provide clearer guidance. AB 2575 requires a pilot project to result in guidelines for conducting cumulative effect evaluation on a planning watershed scale, and specifically requires the project to incorporate suggestions from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. The bill would also require all documents that form the basis for the pilot projects to be posted on the department's internet website. The bill is supported, and I might say that this is somewhat unique in the history of this building, by the Sierra Club and the California Forestry Association, as well as Forest Forever and the California Native Plant Society. I have been working with all groups, and I think that you were distracted for a moment. I want to point out that I have the environmental community and the Forestry Association on the same side on this bill.
Very good.
And we've negotiated technical amendments that are intended to clarify the intent of the bill, which have removed most of the opposition, and I believe some more rather small technical amendments will result in removal of what remaining opposition there is. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Motion from Senator Corbett as amended. So we'll go to your witnesses.
Hi, Luke Bright, representing Forest Forever, and we are strongly in support of the bill. We're proud to be sponsors of it. And I just want to point out the last line of the first paragraph of the analysis. To gather additional information about the long-term cumulative impacts of timber operations is one of the reasons why we are so strongly supporting this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senators, my name is Bill Kai, California Licensed Foresters Association. We have been, our position is still formally opposed unless amended. However, I think we're very close, and I think I've got a sense that we've got some final issues hammered out today, and we're looking forward to getting that resolved and then be able to drop our opposition.
Very good. All right. Any further testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
To the extent that private timberland owners participate in the pilot project, there would be no fiscal impact to the state. However, without private participation, the bill would require a pilot project which would be conducted on the state demonstration forest lands. This could result in significant revenue loss to the Forest Resources Improvement Fund and would reduce the available funding for CAL FIRE programs.
All righty. Members, we have a motion from Senator Corbett as amended.
Madam Chair, would I be pressing my luck to point out that if the Forestry Association feels that this is not a threat to the revenue, then probably the state shouldn't be worrying about it being a threat if the pilot projects took place on state property.
All righty. We have a motion. Let's call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Ashburn? No. Ashburn, no. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Emerson? No. Emerson, no. Leno? Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Walters? Wolk? Wolk, aye. Wyland? Wyland, no. Yee? Yee, aye. 6-3.
6-3, the bill is out. Mr. Chesbro, let's see, skilled nursing and mental health facilities. This is a due pass, members.
Madam Chair, AB 2645 will bring conformity to the Budget Act of 2009 by setting the reimbursement rate for services in institutions for mental disease at the same rate as it was in effect on July 1st, 2009 for 2 years. With me today, I have Patricia Ryan, the Executive Director of the County Mental Health Directors Association.
Right. Let's go to your witnesses, and we have a motion from Senator Emerson. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, thank you. We are the sponsor of this bill. It does conform county-funded institutions for mental disease by freezing the rate that we pay them for 2 years, consistent with the freeze that happened a couple of years ago for other nursing facilities. This will mean for a couple of years a savings of several $1 million for county mental health departments, and means that we'll be able to pull down more federal funds at the higher rate. So we urge your approval.
Thank you. Any further testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
The bill would have no fiscal impact to the state. However, counties estimate annual savings of $3 to $5 million while the rate freeze is in effect.
Very good. We have a motion by Mr. Emerson. If there's no further comments, then we'll call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Ashburn? Aye. Ashburn, aye. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Emerson? Aye. Emerson, aye. Leno? Price? Aye. Price, aye. Walters? Wolk? Wolk, aye. Wyland? Wyland, aye. Yee? Yee, aye. Leno, aye. Leno, aye.
I was just asking about you. All righty.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
10-0.
10-0. 10-0. That is out. Thank you, Mr. Chesbro. Mr. Emerson, you have 2 items to take up for Assemblymember Emerson.
That's right. Long ago when I was in the Assembly.
And this is AB 2191 on behavioral sciences.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Currently, when marriage and family therapists, licensed clinical social workers, licensed educational psychologists, and licensed professional clinical counselors retire from practice, they can either request to be placed on inactive status or allow their license to expire. There are 2 major complaints among complaints among licensees. I've been here a long time today. I'm sorry. Regarding the status options.
I hope you feel better.
I'd just like to ask for an aye vote on
All righty. We'll go to your witnesses.
Yes.
Tracy Ryan, Board of Behavioral Sciences, here to answer any technical questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
By charging a one-time fee of $40 for retired licenses as opposed to the current practice of charging an inactive fee ranging from $40 to $75 every 2 years, the bill would result in reduced revenues to the Board of Behavioral Sciences of approximately $51,000 in 10-11 and $121,000 annually thereafter. The impacted fund, the Behavioral Sciences Science Examiners Fund, is projected to have a fund balance of approximately $4.9 million at the end of 12-13, $2.5 at the end of 13-14, and is expected to go negative in 14-15.
All righty. Any other comments, members? We have a motion, I think, from Senator Corbett. And we'll take the roll. We'll take the roll.
No.
Ready?
Call the roll, please, yes.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Allquest? Allquest, aye. Ashburn? Ashburn, aye. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Emerson?
Aye.
Emerson, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Walters, Wilk? Aye. Wilk, aye. Wyland? Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee? Aye. Yee, aye. 10.
10 to 0, and the bill is out. And now, Mr. Emerson, 2300, AB 2300 on genetic counselors.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this has an
Madam
amendment.
Chair, yes. First, I'd like to say I accept the amendments by the committee.
Thank you.
This bill is a follow-up to Senate Bill 1364, which allowed genetic counselors to be licensed by the Department of Public Health. Unfortunately, the measure didn't include a temporary license provision, and AB 23 addresses that oversight. A temporary license is important to allow new graduates to be able to practice in California under the supervision of a licensed genetic counselor or physician while they
Have a
wait to
motion
take their
from Senator Corbett. But go ahead,
Yes.
finish your statement,
Yes.
Mr. Senator Emerson.
This measure will create jobs in the profession and ensure that new graduates do not have to leave the state in order to practice as a genetic counselor. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
I think I might lose it. I'd appreciate you sticking with me. Thank you, Mr. Emerson. Let's see. Did we take any testimony? In favor? Against? Finance?
The costs of this measure, prior to any amendment taken today, were not fully covered by the fee, and so we had concerns of that.
All righty, we have a motion by Senator Corbett. Without further comment, let's call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Allquist? Aye. Allquist, aye. Ashburn? Aye. Ashburn, aye. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Emerson?
Aye.
Emerson, aye. Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Price?
Aye.
Price, aye. Walters, Wilk? Aye. Wilk, aye. Wyland? Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee? Yee, aye. 10 to 0.
10 to 0, that bill is out. Members, we have one bill on call. We have several on call, but Senator Lowenthal is severely under the weather, and I want to take up the last. Senator who?
Wilk.
What did I say? Oh, Lowenthal. I was looking at the. And you'll understand why in just a moment. Assemblymember Lowenthal's item, the very last on the file, is on call. I want to take that up for the convenience of Senator Woke, and then we can let her go and go back to the other items. So this is AB 2706, and Sally, tell us where what the chair is and all that.
The chair is an aye vote.
The chair's an aye, and Senator Ashburn?
It's a no vote.
All righty. And you want to call the absent members?
Allquist? Aye. Allquist, aye.
This is Lowenthal, AB 2706, on the civil rights of homeless persons.
Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Emerson? Emerson, no. Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Walters? Wyland? Wyland, no. Yee? Yee, aye. 7 to 3.
7 to 3, that bill is out.
I'm sorry?
Already voted on that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I asked you that. All right. Anything else? All right, members. We have, I think, only those items that presentation's been waived remaining. Is that correct?
Yes, and the ones that are on call.
And there are ones on call.
Right.
And they are, let me take a quick look.
Huffman is 5 to 5. This one, everyone is already called on.
Okay. I close the roll?
No, we didn't do anything.
Good. Well, then let's close.
There's everyone.
Leno is voted too? Okay.
So that is, we just need to close that one.
Should I take up the on-calls now and shut them down? Let's do. We'll do the wave presentations, and then I'll take up. There's Danilo and Huffman and one other.
Evans.
Oh, and Evans. Okay. All right, members. Then, if we can look at. Yeah. Where are we with wave presentations? It's in Blumenfeld? We haven't done a... you stay for another half hour? Well, what? Okay, all right. I'm going to lose people. Okay. Wait, I don't want you to change your vote on it, so go. So we're even now. All righty. Let's start with Blumenfield. Senator Ashburn. Blumenfield, AB 1760, 1858, 2027, and we'll start there. AB 1760 by Mr. Blumenfield. He's waived presentation. This is design sequencing contracts. It's for suspense. Is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a statement?
Caltrans believes that the bill could result in significant savings to the state and federal transportation funds.
All righty. It goes to suspense. Without objection. AB 1858, hypodermic needles and syringes. Is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition? Finance, do you have a comment?
I don't have a file on this measure.
That item goes to suspense. AB 2027, this is on online education and attendance by Mr. Blumenfield. Is there testimony in favor? Opposition testimony? Finance, you have a comment?
The bill could result in an increase in ADA claimed by schools and significant Proposition 98 general fund costs with potentially limited educational value. The SPI, Finance, and SCO would incur minor and absorbable costs.
All righty. That item goes to suspense without objection. AB 2494 by Mr. Blumenfield, personal service contracts. Testimony in favor? Testimony opposed? Finance?
No file, Madam Chair.
That item goes to suspense. That item goes to suspense. Next is Mr. Tirico's items. AB 660, sprinkler fitters and licensing. Is there testimony in favor? All righty. Come on up. This is AB 660. Ms. Boma, you're kicking them off.
Wow. You're here, I'm here. Firefighter support.
Okay. Who else is testifying? Okay, opposition? Come on up. Go ahead.
Okay, Madam Chair and members, my name is Darrell Heffley, and I'm with CalSafe, which is an association that represents fire equipment service and install companies. We've stated from the beginning that the fiscal impact of this bill is grossly understated, and I want to address the recent amendments that substantially expand the bill's financial impact resulting from adding inspection testing and maintenance. One of the systems that AB 660 will impact is the fire suppression system that covers cooking equipment. This is like in commercial kitchens. And these are found in thousands of school cafeterias, universities, correctional facilities, public hospitals, and many state buildings. We prepared a spreadsheet, and we're handing it out, that projects the costs that will increase for servicing these systems if AB 660 goes through. The result of that could be near $700,000. And this is a very conservative estimate. And this cost is going to be borne by state and by local cities and other facilities such as that. And this is just one of the systems that AB 660 addresses. This bill is very costly, and it's really not needed, and we oppose.
All righty, next, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Senators. Julianne Broyles here on behalf of Associated Builders and Contractors. Wanted to point out another issue that is a cost associated with AB 660, and that is going to be the cost of implementation. We have a similar program already in place, which is the electrician certification program. That program, which was enacted in 1999, was initially set to say that the cost would be no more than $1 million. For its entire enactment for a 5-year period. That program has now cost close to $10 million. Close to $1 million of that was just the initial setup of the test, the creation of the test, and the initial administration of the test. None of that is reflected in the analysis. We don't think that this bill should move forward. We think the cost is very high on this bill. We would ask for a no vote.
All righty, next, please.
Yes, my name is Randy Dysart. I'm with Jorgensen Company, and also with a member of CalSafe. And just wish to reiterate the statements made.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Michael Shaw with the National Federation of Independent Business.
Opposition.
Opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else on either side? Finance, what's your comment?
The state fire marshal estimates that startup costs would be $52,000 to write regulations, purchase equipment, and set up the program. Ongoing costs would be about $705,000, and they would require 6 positions. The state fire marshal estimates that there are 8,000 individuals doing this installation in California. Therefore, a fee of about $100 per individual would generate sufficient funds for the program, assuming the certification requirements do not reduce supply of sprinkler installers. It's unclear how the initial costs would be funded, and we believe that the bill could result in general fund costs of several $100,000, depending on how long it takes to collect sufficient fee revenue.
All righty. Members, this is going to suspense without further comment then, and no objections. We'll put it there. And Mr. Tirico's next item is AB 2456. This is emergency medical services. Testimony in favor.
Madam Chair, members, Christy Baum with California Professional Firefighters, sponsors of the bill. We've been working very hard with the administration, some of our opponents, to eliminate the cost. But at this point, the bill has language that passes the cost on to my members, EMTs and paramedics, that will pick up the cost to have this standardization.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Boma. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition? Finance, do you have a comment?
I don't have a file on this measure.
All righty, it goes to suspense. Next is Ms. Salas, AB 674, criminal procedures for veterans. Is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
This bill would result in additional general fund costs of an unknown magnitude.
And that puts it in suspense. Magnitude, unknown, unknown. Sounds like
trying to be short to the point.
We had Comic-Con. Okay. All right, that goes to suspense. That's Salas. And Mr. Fong is next. AB 1320 on workforce development. Workforce development, testimony in favor, opposed, testimony. Finance, do you have a comment?
We just note that it's difficult to estimate the costs of this program because EDD staffing needs will be dependent on the amount of contributions the initiative receives and the corresponding number of grants it would be able to award.
Thank you. That goes to suspense without objection. Next is Mr. Hernandez, hospice provider's license. It goes to suspense. This is AB 950. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
The Department of Public Health estimates it would incur costs of approximately $72,000 to survey and license hospice facilities, and it would be offset by like fee revenues based on a per bed fee of $287. In addition, Public Health estimates it would require 1 additional position and approximately $68,000 in 11-12 and $120,000 in 12-13. And we believe that this may result in in reimbursement methodologies under Medi-Cal at significant cost.
Thank you. That item goes to suspense without objection. Mr. Valines has AB 1280, 1280 on child abuse sentencing. Is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, you have a comment?
Assuming that just 10 people serve 1 year in prison as a result of this measure, it could cost the state $250,000 general fund in the short term and $500,000 in the long term.
That item goes to suspense. Thank you. Without objection. Mr. Perez's items. Manuel Perez. AB 1378, Veterans Workforce Program. Is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition? Finance, do you have a comment?
First year costs would be about $250,000, and ongoing need, with ongoing costs dependent on the ongoing need for the contracted services. While there's a similar federal reporting requirement, the report requirements in this bill, if they are more than those prescribed in the federal government, the state would be, it would create new workload, and it would those would be costs incurred by the state.
All righty. That item goes to suspense. Next is AB 1558, state government. Testimony in favor, opposition, finance?
Because the panel exists under current law and is already required to meet and prepare a plan, now it's being referred to in the bill as a strategy, we estimate that any increased costs would be minimal.
Without objection, that goes to suspense. Next is AB 2354, promotores, medical grants. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
I don't have a file on this
Alrighty,
measure.
that item goes to suspense. Next is AB 2515, public water systems. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Suspense?
The Department of Finance notes that the Department of Public Health is currently working on the non-emergency regulations, and the costs associated with this bill would be minor and absorbable.
Very good. That item goes to suspense. Ms. Skinner has AB 1504, carbon sequestration. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Suspense?
Sorry, Madam Chair.
I know you're doing a marathon there.
We don't anticipate that this measure having any fiscal impact because the requirements of this bill are very similar to the tasks set forth in the Interagency Forestry Working Group.
All righty. Without objection, that bill goes to suspense. Next is also by Ms. Skinner, AB 2514, energy storage systems. Is there testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
The cost to the PUC to comply with this bill is estimated to be $1.1 million from the PUC's utility reimbursement account. Finance does not necessarily concur with that estimate, and we would reevaluate this during the budget development process. The Energy Commission has indicated that it would have minor and absorbable costs. In 2010-11, the governor's budget included a PUC budget change proposal for $310,000 and 3 positions, and this proposal was not approved by the conference committee.
All righty. That item goes to suspense, and we move on to Mr. Liu's one item, AB 1778, state agency promotions and commercials. Is there testimony in favor? Opposition? Come on up. Very briefly, please.
Madam Chair, members, Gary Conover representing Western United Dairymen. We are in strong opposition to this bill. We believe
Are you it's the cheese people?
The California Milk Advisory Board advertises the Happy Cows commercial, and this bill is all over the fact that
we know the bill.
We decided to expand the commercial base we had and therefore went out of the country to do it. It's one of the most successful commercials we've ever had. It expands our sales. It's a generic advertising program. It's not a branded product activity. And we believe the bill severely restricts our intellect in making advertising decisions. If, in fact, we were required to film in California, it would have cost our budget another $750,000. We believe there will be ongoing annual costs depending on the kind of advertising program we have. We think it's overly burdensome, especially since these funds derive from private contributions from California dairy families.
Thank you. Next, please.
Crystal Jack on behalf of the Alliance of Western Milk Producers. Just like to echo Mr. Conover's comments and point out that the analysis does reflect a $750,000 cost for the Milk Advisory Board specifically, but that this bill would affect numerous other programs. So we see that the cost would be significantly more than that.
All righty. Yes, Senator Leno?
Just wanted to confirm, absolutely no public funds were involved.
Well, depends on how you define public funds. These funds all derive from dairy families. They're delivered to USDA, collected, held by USDA. They're federally granted to the state, held by the state, and then when the California Milk Advisory Board, which is an instrumentality of the state, comes up with the commercials are approved by the Secretary of Food and Agriculture, and the funds then are transferred and spent by the Milk Advisory Board. So they aren't derived from taxes or other budget activities. That's correct. Thank you.
Anything else, members? This is a suspense candidate, so without objection, we'll move it to suspense.
Thank you.
Finance, yeah, and thank you for your testimony. Finance?
We don't anticipate any state costs associated with this bill.
All righty. AB 1778 goes to suspense. Next is Ms. Evans' items. AB 1640, breast and cervical cancer screening. Is there testimony in favor? Come on up, Mr. Hicks. Is there any opposition? You can come up too. All righty, Mr. Hicks.
California Alliance and Retired Americans are in strong support of this measure because there's nothing that should not be done to make sure that this happens, and we think the costs are negligible concerning how much it costs for treatment. So catching it early is a very good idea. So we're in strong support of this bill.
Thank you very much. Any other testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
The Department of Finance is opposed to this measure based on costs. Since the Breast Cancer Control Fund is exhausted and cannot support any additional costs, the Department of Public Health estimates that an additional $25 million would be needed starting in 2010-11, and those costs would be borne by the general fund.
All righty, that item goes to suspense, and next we have AB 2524, initiatives and elections. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance, you have a comment on this one?
We didn't get an updated analysis from the Secretary of State. However, the Secretary of State indicated it would need at least one AGPA to post initiatives to the Secretary of State's website to monitor for inappropriate comments, as well as to perform other related activities. Additionally, we note that in an analysis of a similar bill, the Secretary of State estimated modifications to its website to be $100,000 initially from the general fund and $14,000 annually thereafter.
Thank you. That item goes to suspense without objection. Next is Mr. Bell has one item, AB 1670, State Highway Routes 82 and 130. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
The bill would likely result in one-time costs to the Department of Caltrans to bring these sections of road into good repair. The cost would depend on the terms of any final agreement between the city and Caltrans. The bill would result in long-term savings to Caltrans for decreased maintenance workload.
Thank you. That item goes to suspense without objection. And we're now at Mr. Solorio's items. That is AB 1834, Rainwater Capture Act of 2010. Testimony in favor, opposition, finance?
I'm sorry, what's the bill number?
This is 1834, the Rainwater Capture Act.
The State Water Board estimates that the bill would cost $640,000 from the general fund to provide the required recommendations to the legislature as prescribed. The Department of Finance is opposed.
That item goes to suspense. Next is AB 2396, also by Mr. Solorio, Workers' Comp Insurance. Is there testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
We anticipate costs to be minor and absorbable.
All righty, that item goes to suspense, followed by Mr. Eng's AB 1899, Internet Website Information. This is 1899. Finance, do you have a comment?
I do. I was waiting for support and opposition at this point. Finance
They're only imaginary at this point.
Finance is opposed to this bill due to costs significantly due to the cost of significantly expanding the amount of information to be posted on the to the reporting, transparency, and government website. By requiring the complete text of the state contracts to be posted. DGS estimates it would result in unknown but significant costs to other state agencies as well.
All righty. That item goes to suspense. Let's see. Next is Ms. Ma, I think. AB 1897, retirement computation for retirees. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance? This is, 1987, you got it?
The bill could lead to increased costs as retired annuitants could be, our concerns rest with the 180-day prohibition, I guess is the best way to put it. This bill would lead to increased costs as retired annuitants could be more cost-effective option for meeting limited-term needs, and the bill would limit the scope of the definition for compensation, which could result in additional expenditures to the state.
Thank you. That item goes to suspense. AB 2570, Ms. Ma, unemployment insurance organizations. Testimony in favor, opposed, finance.
I don't have a file on this measure.
That item goes to suspense. Next is Two items by Mr. Hagman, AB 1988, Chino Valley Unified School District. Is there testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance, you have a comment?
This bill would allow Chino Valley to retain approximately $7.6 million, Proposition 98 General Fund, in longer year incentive funding that would otherwise return to the state, either as program savings or as an audit finding.
Item goes to suspense. Next is AB 2000, rabies vaccinations. This is for dogs, right? For pets. That's right. Pro, con, finance?
The Department of Public Health estimates it would cost $40,000 in general fund, $80,000 in 10-11, and $80,000 in 12-13.
All righty. That item goes to suspense. Next is Mr. Tran's two items, AB 2051, Emergency Services Preparedness, Pro, testimony in favor, opposition testimony, finance.
The bill would have no fiscal impact on the state, as this is a voluntary measure.
All righty, that item goes to suspense. Next is AB 2453, Oil and Gas Operations. In favor testimony, opposition testimony, finance.
The Department of Finance is opposed to this measure unless it is amended back to its original version. While the bill would implement needed changes to the appeal process, it creates additional costs to the oil, gas, and geothermal administrative fund that were not identified in the governor's budget. Conservation estimates the annual cost for this position would be $145,000.
All righty. Next is Mr. Cotto's items, AB 2089. Testimony in favor, opposition testimony, finance. This is Indian Education Oversight Committee.
This bill would result in no additional state cost to the extent that the authorization of the 27 California American Indian Education Center programs to extend the authorization of those centers until 2012. The Annual Budget Act authorizes funding, and currently funds are subject to the categorical flexibility. The Department of Finance notes that the bill is premature and unnecessary in light of the flexibility provided in the recent budgets.
All righty. Next is Mr. Cotto's AB 2253. That 2089 goes to suspense. Now we'll deal with AB 2253, Workers' Comp, Cancer Presumption. Testimony in favor.
Madam Chair, members, Christy Baum with California Professional Firefighters, sponsors of the measure. We ask for your support.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition?
Madam Chair, members, Hugh Bauer on behalf of the cities of San Marcos and Santa Rosa, as well as the Marin County Council of Mayors and council members in opposition.
All righty. Any other testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
The bill would result in significant but unknown costs to state and local governments.
All righty, that item goes to suspense. Next is Ms. Bass's items. AB 2129, foster care residences. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
The Department of Finance supports this bill as it is identical to a piece of administration's proposed omnibus social services trailer bill, which is included in the governor's budget, and it's to be funded from savings related to the adopted assistance program. Total cost would be $185,000 general fund for the pilot project.
All righty, that goes to suspense. Next item is AB 2262, ID card numbers for inmates. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
CDCR has indicated that it believes it would have minor and absorbable costs.
Next is AB 2326, Reentry Advisory Committee. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
The specific fiscal impact to the bill is unknown but potentially significant. According to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, the development of a comprehensive reentry plan could cost between $150,000 and $300,000 general fund. In addition, CDCR notes that the award of federal funding would be contingent upon matching state funds, which would also could potentially increase general fund costs.
Thank you. That goes to suspense. Next is the, did we do the Reentry Advisory Committee?
Yes.
2326. We just put that in suspense, right? All righty. Next is Green Collar Jobs Council. Testimony in favor, opposition, finance.
I don't have a file on this measure.
All right, that goes to suspense too. AB 2699, Healing Arts licensure exemption. Is there testimony in favor? Welcome. Okay, then we'll take opposition.
Thank you. I'm Kelly Green on behalf of the California Nurses Association, and we strongly oppose.
Is your microphone on? There, thank you. Now, well.
Better. Thank you. Kelly Green with the California Nurses Association. We're unfortunately in strong opposition to this bill due in part to the costs that would be imposed upon our state healing arts boards to develop systems and processes and to devote staff time to officially authorize practitioners from other states to provide care to uninsured patients in California without requiring them to have a California license. It's unclear if the boards would recover the costs imposed upon them through this bill by any proposed fees because we're, as stated in the analysis, we're unclear as to how many out-of-state practitioners may come and volunteer. So we're not sure if the boards would recover their costs, which is particularly difficult at a time for boards that are struggling with the current workload that they have, especially at a time when we're trying to improve enforcement for healing arts licensees in our state. We think it would be fiscally prudent and safer for patients as well if these practitioners from other states were required to instead use existing processes to obtain a temporary license. The boards in that way would be able to adequately ensure that they're safe and competent. They would have background checks. We'd make sure that they would practice within California's scope of practice, and boards would have the ability to enforce against their license if they harm a patient. Absent that, we must oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any other testimony on AB 2699? Seeing none. Finance?
DCA indicates that the half-year costs in 2010-11 would be $370,000, full-year costs of approximately $740,000 annually thereafter, and there is a potential for a reimbursable state-mandated program by requiring county health departments to collect information related to health care services provided by in that county.
Thank you. That goes to suspense. Next item is Mr. Hall's AB 2193, gambling moratorium. Is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition? Finance, you have a comment on this one? 2193.
We do not believe that the bill would have a fiscal impact on the Gambling Control Commission.
Goes to suspense. Thank you. AB 2211 by Mr. Fuentes, work-based learning. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance?
The State Department of Education estimates that the bill would cost between $25,000 and $200,000 for meeting, staff time, and publishing, and possible development of regulations. Additionally, it may drive significant new Proposition 98 general fund costs in the tens of millions of dollars.
Thank you. Next is AB 2266 by Mr. Bradford, school district records. Any testimony in favor? Any opposition? Finance, you have a comment?
According to the State Controller's Office, if original documents are not available for an auditor to review, audits may be compromised and the school district's federal and state funding could be negatively impacted.
All righty. It goes to suspense. Also, AB 2581 by Mr. Bradford, banking development districts. Testimony in favor, testimony opposed, finance.
This bill would result in unknown startup costs for 1011. As such, costs are difficult to quantify without knowing the number of participating banks in the program. However, the Treasurer's Office estimates that the bill would result in $486,000 of general fund, and it would require $486,000 general fund annually to fund the program and would require additional staff.
Thank you. That goes to suspense. Mr. Block has two items. AB 2402, CSU admissions and requirements thereof. Testimony in favor, opposition testimony, finance.
CSU has indicated it would likely incur costs of at least $100,000 to implement this bill, and these costs could be much higher.
All righty. That goes to suspense. Next is AB 2682 by Mr. Block, student assessment pilot project. Testimony in favor, opposition, finance. 2682.
The Chancellor's Office estimates that fully implementing the projects would generate savings for the CCCs by allowing them to utilize centralized assessment database. However, any system-wide savings would be reduced by the administrative costs of maintaining and updating the database, which could be done at the local level. In the event the administration is to fully implement the project would occur at the state level, the project would create state operations of general fund cost pressures if the Chancellor's Office is expected to negotiate the vendor contracts for the assessment tests.
All right, that item goes to suspense also. Next is Mr. Silva, AB 2537. This is adjudications and state agencies. Testimony in favor? Opposed? Finance.
This bill would increase workload and costs for some state entities conducting these proceedings. Total costs are unknown, but expected to be significant.
Goes to suspense. Mr. Chesbro has AB 2702, developmental services teams. We have some testimony in favor. Did we get a letter on this? I didn't. Okay. I just. Mr. Hicks, go right ahead.
Now, we took a look at this bill, too, and we took a look at the financial analysis of this bill. But considering what services that are provided, and we realize you say in here that this would tax the savings of $364 million, we believe that's going to be less than that. We also believe that California Alliance for Retired Americans and Californians for Disability Rights believe that in the Lanterman Act Services Act that it is a law and you have to obey the law and you have to spend money to do the law. As for IPPs, it's very important that IPPs be done and they be done correctly, no matter what the cost is, because you are dealing with human beings. So the substantial human cost definitely outweighs the fiscal costs. So for that reason, Californians for Disability Rights and California Alliance for Retired Americans are in strong support.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
The Department of Finance is opposed to this measure. While the bill appears to have no direct fiscal cost, we believe that implementation of the statutory changes may result in unknown costs due to the ambiguity of the proposed language and could potentially nullify existing authority granted to regional centers and shift that authority to the planning team.
All righty, thank you. That item goes to suspense. And our last item, that presentation has been waived on, and then we have about 4 things on call. Lowenthal, Ms. Lowenthal's AB 2663, local governments, something to do with the federal, transfer of local funds to under the federal fiscal year. Testimony in favor? Opposition? Finance.
Finance estimates that the bill could result in a disruption of the state's general fund cash flow in times of economic hardship, particularly if other cities are encouraged to adopt the federal fiscal year budget cycle as a means of discouraging state borrowing from local revenues. Based on how such borrowing has been done in the past, the only revenues that will likely be affected by this bill are the gasoline tax revenues in the HUDA. The Department of Finance is opposed.
All right, that item goes to suspense. That concludes the calendar except for the on-calls. I appreciate everybody hanging in there so much. Thank you. So let's see, what do we have? What do we have next? We have Mr. Liu's AB 1507. And what was the topic on that, Mr. Liu? What was that?
Motor vehicle greenhouse gas emission reduction project.
Oh, thank you. The chair is aye, and I believe Mr. Ashburn was no.
Yes.
You want to call the absent members?
Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. 7-3.
7-3, that bill is out. Next is Ms. Evans, AB 2279. This is the property in Napa County. And Kehoe is aye.
Ashburn, no.
And Ashburn is no.
Alquist? Aye. Alquist, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. 7-3.
7-3, that bill is out. And next is Mr. Nilo's AB 2328, the change in the CARB membership. Kehoe is a no, and Mr. Ashburn is an aye.
Leno?
No.
Leno, no.
Alquist, no.
Alquist, no. So 4-4.
It's 4-4.
4-5, I'm sorry.
It's 4-5, excuse me. So the measure fails. And we'll grant reconsideration.
This one has already failed.
All righty. And then Mr. Huffman has AB 2776. That was water transfers. Kehoe was aye. Mr. Ashburn was no.
But they're already inside.
And everyone's already voted. So it's Mr. Leno
5 to
voted
5.
and everybody? It's 5 to 5. That measure fails. And we'll grant reconsideration on that one, too. Thank you so much, members, and to staff also, and to finance. Everyone worked so hard. Thank you. And we can do it all again next Monday. The meeting's adjourned.